and using React map interaction to create a interactive 2D game board. So for example, if you're trying to build a board game like Settlers of Catan with React, but users can pinch and zoom in, then this is a great library that can help you with that. So let's dive right in. So installation is pretty standard. You can use npm i-save or yarn add. I prefer using yarn. So I've already gone ahead and installed this library into my application. I am running React, and here we go. We see the app is already running. So let's go ahead and plug away. So we have our standard app.js, but let's follow the instructions. Looks like we import map interaction CSS from React map interaction. So we'll go ahead and do that here. So let's scrap all this away and wrap everything around with this wrapper function. Now I'm going to pinch and zoom. I am using my mouse wheel right now, and I'm pinching and zooming around. And as you can see, all the child components are now wrapped in this pinchable and zoomable board as you will. So that's why this is such a perfect library for creating board games. So what we'll do now is, just to show what we're going for, I'm going to create an image tag. And let's just put this board in here, just so I can visualize, we don't need this, what I'm going for. So as you can see here, we can pinch and zoom in. What's important now is to use a controlled state. I think it's much more better for React. So here in the library, we're given an example of a controlled. As you can see, there's just one state value called value with the scale and translation. So let's take this, and what we'll do is we will create a state variable for this. So I like to use functional components, so we'll use useState. So here we'll say const map state, set map state equals useState, and then let's pass in this initial value. So what we can do is map interaction CSS takes two keys. One is called value. We'll set the value to the value of map state. Then there is an onChange function, and there's one argument value, and it gets passed, and we could handle the change with this argument. So what we'll do here is we'll set map state to this new value, and we'll save here. Now if we go back, we can see that the initial zoom and translation is like so. If we set the scale to 3, then automatically we're zoomed in way more. If we set it to, let's say, 0.25, as you can see, we're zoomed out automatically. And we can mess around with the X and Y to get different desired results. So we see here, we set X to 200, that pushed the board out by 200 pixels. We set Y to 500, that pushed the board down by 500 pixels. So it looks like positive X values pushes everything to the translation to the right. Positive Y values pushes it to the down, and vice versa. So why are these coordinates important? Because now what we can do is we can create an interactive board as long as we pass child elements to this map interaction CSS. So let's say we're trying to create board pieces like so. But we'll just do a circle to make it easy. So ultimately what this will look like is there will be circles on the board, kind of relative to Settlers of Catan. So what we could do is we can create a function called render board pieces. And I'll create it here, const render board pieces equals, create an arrow function. And what we could do is then we can create the board pieces here. Let's call it an array, and then we'll say board pieces dot map board piece. And what we'll do is then we'll render what I'll do is I'll create a separate component, call it piece. Of course, we want to pass it a key. I'll just pass it the index, so we'll call it board piece. This is not recommended for production applications, but for our use case right now, we can do this. And what we'll do is we'll pass a x coordinate and a y coordinate. So we'll say board piece.x, board piece.y. So now let's go ahead and create this component, piece.js, create an arrow function, and here we'll pass in x and y as the prop. And what we'll do, just for simplicity, we'll just make it a circular div. So style, position, absolute, give it a width of, let's say 200, height of 200, border radius of 50%, so it's a circle, and we'll give it a background color of black. And what we'll also do, since the position is absolute, is we could provide left and y coordinates, left and top. So we'll set left to x and y to top to y, and we'll pass another argument called letter as the child. And what we could do is let's set this to a p tag, value being letter, style, font size, give it a font size of 30, font weight, bold, so we can see it clearly. So we have our piece component. Let's import this in, piece from piece. There we go, and we'll pass in a letter. So the letter can be board piece.letter. Okay, as you can see, it's not going to render anything because we haven't defined any pieces. So this is when it's important to clearly define what our piece will look like. So what it will be ultimately is x will be a number, y will be a number, and letter will be a string. So what we could do now is we can set x to, let's say 200 here, y to 200, letter we'll say a. And we'll set another x to 400, a y to 400, and set this letter to B. So now these are our board pieces. So if we save, we still don't see anything. And the reason being, and this is very important, is that by default, we haven't set a height for our map interaction. So it took us hours to figure this out with our agency, but what we can do is we can wrap map interaction CSS with a parent div, and we'll give it a style of width 100 VW and height of 100 VH, so it takes up the entire screen. So as you can see, now we are actually, now the board takes up the entire screen. But it looks like our pieces are still not rendering. We'll figure out why. So there's no child component. We are definitely calling this. It might be our actual piece. Function, let's try just h1 for now, just to see something render on the screen. Looks like that's not the case. Is there anything on the console? Nope. Ah, I forgot to return. That's why. So you see right here, A and B are returning. Let's go back and uncomment this. And boom, here we go. We see the beginnings of a game board that we can pinch and zoom with. And as you can see, it's very powerful. The quality still stays really high. It's not pixelated. And users can essentially pinch and zoom around the map like so. I mean, you can go crazy with this. You can For example, add a bunch of pieces, and we'll say this is 0, 0. Let's give this a negative 200, 400, and call it V. So you can add in as many pieces as you want, and the board can get very complex. This is what we use to build a board game for one of our clients that is now mass multiplayer, and it's running live. Our client has over 140 daily active users now, and really it's with the help of React Map Interaction.